everyone, this is Mindy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to create this adorable card using this stamp set Magical Christmas from Simon Says Stamp. So first, let's take a look at the stamp set itself. It's a large 6x8 stamp set, great for creating scenes because it has this variety of fairies on here and elements to create your card. Now, the first thing I want to do is lay out my images before I stamp them, just so I can get an idea how everything is going to fit on the front of the card, and then I can take them over and stamp them out. Now, for today, I'm actually using Hammermill Cardstock. Normally, I would use Neenah 80 pound, but there's a few things I'm trying out with the Hammermill cardstock. It is a super smooth cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my images in the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, and I'm going to stamp them a couple times. Then I can move on to coloring my images. So for each section, I will have the colors listed at the very top of the screen for you for each individual item that I'm coloring, so you can reference this at any time. Now, I haven't done a lot of Copic coloring on my channel lately, especially small detailed images like this, and I have to practice what I preach, where you need to practice to get better. The other night, I was cleaning out some things, digging out some folders, and I had found some images of when I kind of was getting into Copic coloring. I started by looking at pictures and videos just like everybody else, but then I signed up for classes from Kitten Clowder, and she teaches very, very detailed images. Some of it, I don't always apply the techniques. I try to simplify things down, but there are a lot of techniques in her classes to teach, and I will follow those to a T when I'm doing the pictures for the class itself. So anyway, I found those pictures and I asked myself, what happened to me? Because I can't color like that anymore. Just some principles that apply to coloring and adding definition, things like that. I've really simplified it down, which is fine because I'm not really into that real detailed coloring anymore. It's not really my style, but I do miss some things once in a while. So I dug out my Copic markers today and decided to try and color up these images on camera for you. This is such a sweet set. Now, it is a little harder for me because a lot of the images that I would color in class were larger. I printed them bigger, which is more space to work with. These images are smaller, so I really actually struggled with the hair. That is where I definitely need to practice my techniques on. And the other part that I really, really struggled with, and I have to go find some videos on how to color fairy wings, because I know they can be super adorable and we can make them look real magical. And I don't really think I achieved that for my project for today. They still look cute, but it wasn't really the wings for the fairies that I had in mind. I wanted something a little more whimsical. So in today's video, I really just wanted to stress that you need to keep practicing. If you're not happy with where your coloring is right now, just keep practicing, because the more you practice, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. I don't color half as much as I used to when I very first started kind of getting into card making, because I fell in love with techniques. And so my Copic coloring kind of took a back seat because I really focused more on ink blending, which I still absolutely love. But I do also love to Copic color on occasion. So I really want to stress that if you're struggling at all, just keep practicing, keep watching videos. Maybe you don't even want to listen to what the person has to say. Just watch where they're applying color. Now, I do want to also explain the cardstock that I'm using today. Normally, I use Neenah 80 pound, and one of the reasons that I had switched over to Neenah 80 pound for the longest time was because the white of my Neenah 80 pound most likely would match the white of my background, because I use Neenah 80 pound for almost all my ink blending and things like that. So that's why I had switched to coloring on Neenah 80 pound. But recently, I've been experimenting with Olo markers. I've been experimenting with Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers. And those two markers in particular, I was finding that my ink was bleeding. I was using a Copic Safe ink, and my normal 80-pound cardstock, and I was finding a lot of bleeding, which was frustrating me. And then I watched Christina, and she had mentioned for her Olo markers, she started using, I think she was using Express It cardstock, which is what I started with when I first started coloring, and then had switched over. So that is why today I am digging out Hammermill, which is a pretty smooth cardstock, just like Express It. And the color kind of sits on top of the cardstock just a little bit longer than it would on Neenah 80 pound. On Neenah 80 pound, it really sinks into the fibers of the cardstock. So I just wanted to kind of get a feel once again for coloring on such a smooth cardstock. I don't have any Express It cardstock handy, but Hammermill is pretty close. If you are just getting started coloring with Copic markers, use what you have on hand. I would say at least 80-pound cardstock. I believe Hammermill is 100-pound, I think. But you wanna just stay consistent, because the more you get used to a particular cardstock, the more you're gonna understand it, how the ink works with it, how it soaks in, how your color blends on it. So if you have Neenah 80 pound, definitely go ahead and use Neenah 80 pound. I'm fairly familiar with all my markers. I just kind of need to see how each one works with the cardstock, mainly because Olo markers and the tri-blend markers, the ink comes out super, super fast. And with the Copics, they don't. So that is why I'm kind of experimenting with all of this today and just trying to really get back into the feel of using my alcohol markers a little bit more. So sorry for all that kind of random babbling that I just did throughout the coloring process. It was just some things that have been rolling around in my head, and I just wanted to explain to you what I've been doing or what I've been thinking and my thought process on picking my cardstock. As far as picking my markers, I do invest a lot in coloring. You don't have to. You can pick one brand and just work with that. I've had my Copic markers for over 10 years. So I've just kind of been experimenting. I also want to play with the different brands so I can let you know how they work. Are they worth it? Now, I'm still playing with the Olo markers. I'm not as familiar with them as I am Copics, and the same thing for the tri-blend, but I do hope to be able to bring those to the camera or to my channel a little bit more. Now at this point, I have everything die cut out, laid out on my card the way I want it to be in the final design layout. So I'm going to add some ink blending to the background. I started with the Simon Says Stamp Seafoam ink. This is part of a trio collection. There's 3 of them in here. And I'm using this flat blending brush from Simon Says Stamp. I'm starting in the center with my lightest color because I want it to kind of look like there's a glow behind my ornament. Now, in hindsight, this would have been a lot easier if I would have just started with a really light blue cardstock and then added ink blending to the edges. Didn't quite know where I was going to go with this card at first, so there's a lot of ink blending going on. Here I'm using Surf to go around the outer edges and blend in, but leaving that center, that light color. And then I'm coming in with Ocean, which is that 3rd color in the trio. Once again, starting from the edge, blending in, and these smooth out real nice. So it's going to kind of blend in with the rest of the colors I used and also leave me that nice highlight area in the center. As I'm getting a feel for my design, I'm going to go ahead and attach the topper of my ornament. So the string that's hanging down, I'm going to just go ahead and attach that right away. So it's all one piece and I don't have to worry about losing that on my desk. And then I'm going to stamp out my sentiment. And this is just going to be on white cardstock stamped in intense black ink. And I love that there is a coordinating coordinating die for this sentiment. Now that I have all my components ready, I still felt like my card was just missing something. I wanted it to look a little bit more magical. So I brought out this Christmas star background stamp. Now I know at the time of this video that this background stamp is out of stock, but if you hit the notify me button, you'll be notified when it does come back in stock. I just thought it worked perfectly for the look and kind of that magical feel that I wanted to bring to my background. But I didn't want it to overpower my design. So I'm stamping this in Hero Art's Dove White ink. I just kind of started by, swirling it on there just to really get some color. And then I went up and down with my ink pad. This is a super, super light color. It is not a pigment ink. I didn't want to do pigment ink because that would have been probably too bright white for me. I wanted something just very, very faint. So I stamped it about 3 or 4 times. So now I'm ready to put my card together, and I started with that branch at the very top, kind of having it hang off of the edge just a smidge, and I'm using liquid glue to attach that because that's going to be in the very background, very back part of my card. Then I lined my ornament with some thin foam squares, and the fairies, I'm going to put some regular foam squares on the back. So there are 2 different kinds of thicknesses with foam squares. After I attach my cute little fairies, I'm going to take my sentiment, also attach that with some foam squares down in that corner. And then that is going to finish off my card project for you today. Thank you so much for sticking with me and all of my babbling. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial. I will have all of my supplies linked down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. Thanks for stopping by, and see you soon.